now and again. So in this workshop, we'll be going over over UI for mobile. Specifically, we'll be going over the device preview feature that was released in the last patch. So this workshop will be for those that don't know about that feature or what it is used for. We will cover a little bit of scripting later on, not much because we want to save some of that for future workshops. So like over the next few weeks, we'll be covering I think it's events, performance, and then maybe a couple of other ones. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. Oh, looks like it's already playing with this. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about the mobile device preview first. And then what we're going to do, we're going to look at some UI examples and see how we can make UI, I guess, aware. So it'll be device aware UI is what I'm calling it. And that can be done with a little bit of scripting. I'm sure some of you already tried that. But I will show you a few solutions on how you can do that yourself. Let me a sec. Right. Okay, so the device preview, what it does, it allows you to simulate how aspects of your game will appear on a mobile device. So it kind of gives you an approximate idea of what it would look like and maybe how it feels. So you can enable the device preview by clicking on this button up here, and you can click the enable button. And what this will do, you'll get the frame show up by default. So if we reset these to default, you can see we've got a frame. Let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so yeah, with a device preview, you've got a few options in here. You can enable and disable the device preview in the preview mode, and then when you're playing a game, so you can pause it and turn it on. So this is good for like fast iteration, and this is going to allow you to test your UI on the fly to see kind of where it is in the bounds of the safe zone, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, something to note is that the device preview only works in the editor, like in local preview mode. So multiplayer preview mode is currently not supported. And you might be aware also that we only support landscape mode at the moment. I'm not sure if portrait mode will be supported in the future, but that's something to think about when you're designing your UI, because you're going to have a lot more. I guess you can have a lot more space to play with since it's in landscape mode. But if you play games like idle games, most of them they're played in like portrait mode. So because usually they're casual games, you turn them on and I'm not sure if anyone's played like Adventure Capitalist. It's one of my favorites, but that does support landscape mode and it allows you to fill more of the screen up. So it's something to think about when you're designing your UI. With the safe zone, by enabling this, the safe zone of the selected device will have so if you can see, like you've got this like this margin over here, and the safe zone is going to show you where the UI is best placed so it doesn't get obstructed by the notch or outside of this area, because some devices have a notch, and basically what this is that it kind of has the sensors inside of it, and there is I think on iOS it's only kind of one shape, which is kind of like this, but on some devices it is like the teardrop shape, and currently we're only supporting iOS. Give me a sec. Let me just check. For some reason my thing is not working. Nope. There we go. Okay, yeah. So with the notch, you can toggle this, and it'll toggle from the left and the right side. And this when it's flipped, you can see that it's going to also update the safe zone in the preview. And this is important to test your UI to ensure that parts of the UI are not obstructed by the notch. So just keep aware of that. So if we don't have the safe zone on, you kind of don't know where it's safe to put your UI. So if you're going to put UI in here that fills the whole screen, you are going to cut off corners of your UI, and especially where the notch is. So the notch could be the notch is usually at the top of your device. So you imagine that the device is laying down, with the top being this side, then the notch would be on the left side. But they've added an option to kind of add it on both sides because the device can actually be turned upside down as well. But since you're in landscape mode, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna have to just be aware of that. With the devices you can select from, you can choose different devices. So I don't own an iOS device, so I'm going to assume that these are the newer ones down here. But some of these don't have notches on, so also be aware of that when you're testing. And you can see we get smaller dimensions. And you can also choose on tablets. Is these the newer ones? No, these are the new ones, aren't they? The 9th gen? Or no, is it the 5th gen? Are these the new ones? Yeah, you can see these are pretty big. I know it's handy you can reset it to default if needed. So with the safe zone, when you enable this option, the safe zone of the selected device will have the safe zone area displayed, and this is working on where all the elements will be visible. So anything in this kind of rectangle you're seeing is where your UI should really be going. Otherwise, there's a good chance your UI will be clipped by the device's notch or the corners. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move into actually previewing UI, so that'll be a little more fun. Let's just resize this. Okay, come on. Okay, so when you've got the device preview mode enabled, I'm going to just turn off the safe zone for a sec. The UI will changes depends on where the player touches the screen. So if I enter play mode, I'm going to go full screen. So if I touch the screen on the left side of it, you're going to see I'm going to get the virtual joystick appear. But if I touch it on the right side, this allows me to handle camera movement when touched. What gets displayed on the screen depends on the binding set. With a little scripting, you can also turn off some of these things. So, like, if you don't want this virtual joystick to appear, this can actually be turned off. But you can only do that with scripting at the moment. And obviously, this depends on your game and what controls you want to expose to the player. And there will be a future talk. We'll be going over controls, and also another talk to go over some of the events for mobile.
It's record.
So with these controls you're seeing, these ones like the X, the A, the B and the Y, and these triggers, these are on the screen because they're in the binding set that I'm using. So you'll see these by default anyway. But these four at the top, these cannot be well, one of them can be disabled because it depends if mount is enabled in your game. But the other three, which the first one like minimizes the current game and brings up the core game browser, that can't be moved or hidden at the moment. This is your emotes window for the player to select an emote. And this one opens the core settings. So if I select this, I can see that I get my settings. And this is something to kind of be aware of because, if you want UI in this top left corner, then you're going to have overlapping an icon on top of your UI, which is not ideal. And I'm hoping maybe in the future these icons will be able to be moved around, or we can set up our own. But that's just something to be aware of, that the default three, that one and these two over here, you have really no control of. And this one, it just depends if you've got mount enabled or not. And then again, these ones are based on your binding set. So if you have no binding set up for whatever X would be, so I think that, well, A is jump. So if you don't have a jump binding or you have the removed, then this will not show up. Something to also kind of be aware of is the safe zone for this. So can't really show this. Let me see if I can make this big, and then you'll get to see it. Okay, so when you enable the safe zone, what it's actually going to do, when we got some UI in here, your own UI, the position of the container is actually inset, and this is like inset to avoid overlapping with the device's like display elements, and this is the things such as the notch. And when it's disabled, the container is kind of like the same size and shape of the actual device's display, and that's regardless of the device's display features. So, as an example, let's actually create a UI. Container, and if we add a, let's add an image. Okay. So if we turn on and off the safe mode, then what's going to happen is if the notch is moved over, so if we flip the notch, you can see that the UI will actually move over as well. But let's see. So let's just enable that again. And then we also have the setting on the UI container. So you might not want to use the safe zone at all. I'm not sure why you wouldn't. But if you don't use this, and I do switch the notch back, you're going to see that the UI is now outside the safe zone. So be aware of that. You might want your UI to fill the whole screen, and you're not worried about the safe zone. Maybe you've got a background image that needs to fill the whole window. If that's the case, then you would probably not want to use the safe zone. And I would have a separate UI container for that. You wouldn't want to put your other UI in here, then having to kind of move it more in towards away from the side, because when you flip, you're going to get a bigger gap here. So something to think about. Probably separate your UI for that, one for the background and then one for your actual UI components. Also, I guess something to note is that this option, the use safe zone option, this has no effect for 3D world space UI. So it only works for screen space. So if I had this on, obviously it makes sense that this is not going to work. So this will, if yeah, you can kind of see it's not going to do anything. It's something to be aware of. Okay, so let me just check there's no questions first. Oh, Venture Communist here. Yeah, I haven't played that one, I don't think. Okay, so no questions, that's good. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to actually pull in some CC, and I'm going to use some UI CC. So let's grab, oh, really? Okay, so let's go to see community content, and who's got some UI? Cardinal, I think, has some. I think it's this one. Okay, so we'll use this one. Oh god, there's a lot of templates in this one. Well, let's see. Let's actually just set up a container. As actually, does this come with any examples? What's this one look like? Oh, it needs a container. Okay. Well, do any of these have containers? No, we'll just have to set one up. All right. Okay, so let's use. Let's go for RBG. Oh, of course, that one does have a container. Okay, so let's give it a that. Right. Let's take a look at this. So this is Cardinal Zebra's UI. And you can already see, let me just enable the safe zone on this. So if we kind of disable in the device preview, on PC it's not too bad. You know, it's got a little bit of margin around these elements, and I guess these two down here are designed to be flush against the edge. If we look at this in mobile preview, you can see that this top right corner has been cut off. This bottom left corner is cut off. This is pretty good. That's not too bad. Probably want a little bit more margin above this one. And this one probably wants to be raised up a bit. So yeah, we could actually go through in here and actually start modifying where they are. And let's see. So what we got here, we can just let's grab this one up here. So you know, we could go through and manually start adding a bit more. We apparently get 2. Interesting. Hmm. Apparently that comes with 2. Okay. Right, so let's try and move that down. What? Where is this coming from? I'm not sure I understand what's going on here. They got 2 in here somehow. Nope, just the 1. Anyone see what's wrong with this? So this is the only panel that I'm showing right now. This is the only container. And you'd think moving the whole thing, but for some reason, there's 2. That's interesting. I'm not sure what to say about that. Yeah, it's a clone. Let me reload the project. Okay, we found a bug. Yeah, interesting bug. Okay. Right. Back to what I was working on. Okay, yeah, so you know, this is kind of tedious, you know, having to move things around, and you know, if you want things to be within the safe zone, you're gonna need to give, you know, enough space between the edge of the screen. And you know, we can test this when the notch is flipped as well. So you can see it's not too bad, you know, it's got that a bit more space. It's not cut off, but there's still this other UI that is. So this would be a matter of just adding more margin around them. Like this one, we would probably want to move this up. So this is the abilities. We move this up because we still kind of want it to be flush, because I think this is how it's designed, so it's against the edge. But if we move it up and we have a look on PC as well, how it looks. Yeah, it's still not too bad. It's probably a little bit too high. But it's the downside is that you kind of need to make your UI work for PC and mobile. Otherwise, you'd have to have separate UI for different devices. Now, if you don't want to go down the tedious route of having separate UI, then your best bet would be to try and move these so they kind of work on all devices. And this isn't too bad. The other ones do need modifying, like this top right one, because if the notch gets flipped, so if I flip this, you can see it is getting cut off. So this is why you kind of need to test, and probably test in different devices as well. Let's try, I don't know, let's try this one. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same case. Okay, let's reset that. So let's kind of look at how we could do a little bit of device aware logic, so that because on mobile you wouldn't really have these key presses, because you're not going to be able to press 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. So it kind of makes no sense to have these show up on mobile. The option would be either to spawn in a separate template or maybe hide these. And I think hiding these would be the better option. So we can kind of detect what input device the player is using. And based on if it's mobile, we could hide these. And if it's PC, then we could show them. So I'll show you how to quickly do that. And then I've got another kind of slightly better way of how we could do it. So I'm going to create a script. Let's call it device aware. And let's bring this up. Okay, so we want access to these kind of these abilities, and then we'll find the UI inside these abilities that we want to kind of hide. So we click on the editing mode and we click on this. So we got text, and they look like they've got a background as well. Not that. Oh, it's the frame. Okay, so there must be something in here. Okay, so we kind of want to hide that and that on mobile, but have them shown on the client or on the PC. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to put all these in their own panel, and then I can kind of loop through them. So we're going to just drop them into there, and I'm going to add this as a, well, let's rename it, I guess, abilities. And we're going to drop this as a custom property. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to open this up. Where did it open? And it will open to my other screen. Oh no, I just closed it. Why is this so big? All right, let's just open that. Let's open the folder. What did I call it? Mobile. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we got our script. We've got our custom property. We're going to put that in. So what we want to do is we want to kind of get the current device, the current input device, and we can do that using the input namespace. So let's kind of create something so we can see what device is currently enabled. So we're going to do function get input device, and we're going to say if the input dot I think it's get current. Yep. Equals input type dot I guess we should also support control as well, so we'll keep that in there. And what we'll do, we're just going to copy this line, put this here, and then we'll do something under here. So we're going to use the get current input type, and this is going to give us either the controller, or the touch device. So it'll return touch, and the final one would be keyboard and mouse. So I'm going to return controller for this one. Return touch for this, and then finally, then it really should just be keyboard and mouse. So we'll return keyboard and mouse. We'll keep it lowercase. We can see what this prints out. We'll just put it in a tick and have a look. So if we run this script, look at the event log. I'm going to keep we're going to keep this enabled. So by default, let me just run that again. So it's going to remember the last input device that was connected. So in this case, it thinks my input device is a touch. But if I was to click on this with my, so let's have a sort of like, or move, or press WASD, it should then switch to keyboard and mouse. So that's one way we can detect what the input type is, and you can see it's switching between them both. And if you had a controller plugged in, that would also detect that. Okay, so with that, we could address this issue of the UI so that if the input device is touch, then it will change the UI to be more touch focused. In this case, we don't want these showing up on mobile, so we're going to hide them. So what we can do, let's modify. Let's create a new. We can get rid of this. So local function on. We're going to detect when the input changes, and that receives the player and the input type. And what we can do, we will just print it for now. Let's make sure that we are getting the right input. We can just say input dot input changed, input type changed event. So this event will fire when the input changes. So if you enable the mobile device preview and click on the screen, then it will change to touch there. Whereas if you start using the keyboard, then it will be keyboard and mouse. So right now, it's probably going to think it's going to remember the last thing I done. So in this case, I was keyboard and mouse. So this time, if I come back in, then I should not get anything printed here. It's going to think the last thing I was in touch. So when I press W to move forward, then it should think that I'm keyboard mouse. I did click as well. So you can see that's now detecting on telling us when the device input has changed. So I'm now using the keyboard, and now I'm using the mouse. So this will be touch control. So you got the joystick over here. You got the camera over here. And if I start using, let's say I jump in the space bar, you can see that I can detect that it's the keyboard and mouse being used now. So it's kind of interesting in preview mode is that what if I hit play, what's the last device I used? Kind of weird. So in theory, the last device should be the touch. So if I was to do anything that was touch related, a touch input, it shouldn't show up anything, which is correct. So that already knows that we are in the touch. It's a touch input. But where if I start pressing the keyboard, letters on the keyboard to move around, and then I come out of it, then the last input that was connected is going to be the keyboard and mouse. So if I start moving around, you'll see it doesn't detect any input change. That kind of something to be aware of when you're testing your UI. And then if I was to use the mouse to rotate my camera, this would be simulating touch. You can see it's changed to touch. So I kind of be aware of that. Okay, so let's look at how we can actually toggle this UI so that if it's mobile, these get turned off. Okay, so we have the abilities panel. So we can just kind of go through the children and just turn them off. So let's do that here, I guess. Oh, let's create a function. Put toggle keys, and we'll pass it a visibility. And we'll say for index child in iPairs abilities get children, and we're just gonna find those elements by their names. So I'm kind of interested in the frame of this I think it was the background for this. Yeah, it was one of these. Okay, so we were interested in this and the key number. So we're just going to set them to visibility off if it's a mobile device or mobile input. So we can just do child, find descendant by name, it's key number dot visibility equals visibility. We can just copy that and then just change this to I think it was key number background. Okay, so let's also, while we're here, let's put something at the top so we can see what our input device is. So let's create a text field. Let's just put this top center. Okay, and let's just come out of this for a sec. Let's make it a bit bigger. Let's just bring it down a little bit. Okay, let's give it like a, and then I'm gonna just set this as a custom property so we can kind of use this. And then what we can do when the script is loaded, we can just say device dot text equals get input device. So this will tell us what our current input device is. Let's make that bigger. Not wrap text. So you can see it. And then if I enable device preview, it's still gonna say keyboard and mouse because that's the last input. If I was to hook up that function to the event, then it changes input, then that would update. So we're going to do that now, and then we're going to do the UI. So we could just do that in here. We could just grab this. In fact, we can just copy this and put this here. Get rid of this. And then we can just check the input device or the input type. And if it is touch, then we want to toggle the keys and we want to set to force off. And then we can just copy that. And then we can just set these back to inherit. So that should handle turning off the UI that doesn't need to be shown on the mobile. So let's see. So currently we're keyboard and mouse. Oh, we have an error. Must have missed something. What was the line? Visibility. What did I miss here? Oh, typo. That's right. There we go. Okay, so you can see that if I play that again. So right now the input device is keyboard and mouse, but when I start trying to either drag the camera around or move my character, like simulating touch, then you'll see that they disappear. So that's kind of one way you can handle device aware UI, and that's kind of not a bad way to do it. The only downside of this is that you've got to have a script in here that's got to have a custom property for all the UI you want to turn off on the mobile or for input for touch devices, and it's kind of a little bit messy. So another way we could do this is maybe use a data table, and that would probably be a cleaner way. So let's kind of set that up. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna actually gonna let's just make sure I ain't got any questions first. Let's see. Yeah, I missed the eye. Thank you. Let's see. I'm just catching up with questions. Possible to create floating animated UI. I mean, it's going to be yeah. I mean, you can do what you want with the UI. That doesn't affect that being on PC or mobile. What you can do on PC, you can do on mobile. So there's no restriction there. Let's see. What happens if you connect a keyboard or controller to your mobile phone? Yeah, this is something to be aware of. That would change the input device, I assume. So that's something you would need to take care of as well. Similar to what I'm doing here, is that imagine that I'm on touch right now. So if I let's see, did I not? One sec. Oh, I think I removed the thing, but yeah, you can imagine like if you plug in a keyboard or controller, then you would be detecting that using the input type changed event, and then you can do whatever you need to do. So how would I check which UI to use if I made one for computer layout and one for mobile? I mean, that's. I'm going to show you a one way to do that in a minute. Well, technically, this is one way, but it's not the most ideal way, I don't think. But I'm going to show you another way that I prefer. Um, in There are different ways. You could just if you know that they're using a controller, then maybe you could just remove the current UI, like destroy it, and then spawn in the UI for controller. There's different ways to do this. But that wouldn't work with a keyboard on mobile phone. Um, how would I check which UI to use if I made one for computer layer and one for mobile? But you can check by looking at the input type. So you're gonna have touch, which means that you're using your finger and touching the screen. You've got controller, means that a controller's been plugged in, so you're going to be holding a device like a controller in your hand and uh, moving the character around. And then you've got the keyboard and mouse. So it's three separate input devices. So not sure I quite get what you mean. Okay, so let's go. I want to kind of go through this next example, and then we're going to wrap it up. So what I'm going to do in this one, I'm going to actually remove any reference to this UI on this script. I don't want to do it in here. I want to do it differently. And I'm going to create a data table to do this instead. Any other questions? I'll answer once we're done. Okay, so let's see. Great data table. Let's just call it, I don't know what to call it. Device UI. We'll just call it device UI. Let's do 2 rows. We'll just do 2 UI elements. Keep it kind of small. So what the columns we want a reference to the UI in the hierarchy, and we want to be able to just toggle on and off if it's for PC or mobile. But you might want UI that actually displays on PC and mobile. So we probably want to keep them as 2 separate options. So let's add 3 columns. And so in this one, we're going to call this the UI, and this will be a object reference. in this one, it's going to be a Boolean, and we'll just call this PC. And you could add, you could do this based on the input device. So in this case, on PC, this will be keyboard and mouse. The next column would be touch, and then you could do one for controller as well. But I'm just going to keep them PC and mobile for now. So in this one, it's going to be a Boolean. And for this one, we will just do mobile. And again, this is going to be a Boolean. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to that UI we had. So these, but I'm just going to do the one for now. And I'm going to just drop these in as a reference in these rows. So let's go in here. Let's find, don't know whether to do it a different way around, but we want to grab this first one. So I'm going to add the key number and also that background, this one here. So what do I want to have in here? Well, I want it to work on PC. So I'm going to tick both of these, but I don't want it to work on mobile. So I want these to still be invisible on mobile. And this would probably be this is kind of a nicer way, because then you've got more control on what gets displayed on PC and mobile, and you could even throw in controller in there as well. And that way you could have, like, maybe this background displays on the PC, mobile, and controller. But in this case, I don't want it to show at all for mobile, so I'm ticking them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this as a custom property, and we're going to modify this script. So what don't we need now? We don't need this. Actually, we still want that to display it. So we want the table. Let's see. We don't want to. I guess we can keep that. So we'll okay. Yeah, we don't need this anymore. We'll do this differently. So let's get rid of that. And what we're going to do, we're going to basically loop through the table. So let's see, index row in iPairs, what we call device UI. We're going to loop through with every row in that data table, and we're going to basically say if the row has mobile enabled, so it's checked, and the input type equals input type mobile, no, touch, sorry, then we want the visibility to be inherent, so that would be turn it on. Oops. So we want an actual store a variable here. So we want to do it above the list there. So let's do it in here. So I kind of want to default. I wish it'd stop updating visibility. We're going to set this to visibility false off. We want this to be visibility equals visibility inherit, because we want it to be on. Then we basically can just take this and repeat this for keyboard and mouse. So if it's PC and the input is keyboard and mouse, then we can do the same. And then we can just set that UI. And since it's a reference, so just this kind of catches people out. This is a reference, so we actually need to kind of get this object so that we can set the visibility of. So we're going to do get object, and we're going to set visibility equals visibility. I think that's it. I guess we don't need this really, but we'll keep that in there. Okay, so let's give that a go. So we get any errors. So what I was expecting to see is that on PC, I expect to see this still appear. Good. And if I enable device preview and I use the touch, you can see it disappeared. If I switch back to keyboard and mouse, it appears, and using touch again, it disappears. So this is kind of a nice way to do this, because now if I want to, I can pull up this data table and say, well, I do want these to work on PC and mobile. So now I can have both shown, and it's touch device, so it's shown, and if I use keyboard and mouse, it's still shown. And we can easily add more rows to this. So maybe we can do the other ones. Let's quickly do the other ones, and then we'll stop there. So let's add 2 more rows, and we'll add the key number for this one and the background for this one. And let's just let's just not have it display on PC for some reason. We'll save that. So when it detects keyboard and mouse, you can see that this one's hidden and this one is showing. But when I use touch, you can see that's showing. So yeah, that's a kind of a nice way of handling kind of device-aware UI with doing it with the data table. Okay, let's just see if there's any questions. Yeah, so with the coding, yeah, to be able to switch UI depending on the input device dock, it does require a little bit of scripting. It's quite easy because all you're doing is hooking into it. You're kind of using one event, and there's going to be a function that's simply going to turn. You could just turn the visibility on and off. It's quite simple, and we'll definitely have docs for this stuff. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a way to detect the input device, just the device itself. Inputs are whatever is mapped to. Yeah, you can't tell if it's an actual what the device is. You can only tell what the input device is. Like I wouldn't know if you're using an actual mobile device or a tablet or maybe a laptop with a touch screen. There's no way for me to know that. The API doesn't give that information.